Good evening, and welcome back to Worlds Before Morning. Tonight we are going to the far side of the world, and 240 years back, to the largest city on Earth. It is not London. It is not Paris. It is Edo, the city that will one day be called Tokyo. And on this cool autumn night, it holds more than 1 million sleeping people. And most of the world has never heard its name. You do not need to know anything about Japan tonight. There will be no dates to remember, and no names to keep straight. There is only a great wooden city by a bay, full of lanterns and bridges and bathhouses, settling down for the night the way it has settled down every night for 100 years. Our whole task is to walk through it slowly while it falls asleep, and to fall asleep before it does, if we can manage it. We usually can. So make yourself comfortable now. Settle into the bed properly, the way you mean it. Let your shoulders come down. Let your jaw unclench, and your hands soften, and your breathing find the slow pace it knows perfectly well how to find when nobody interferes with it. Nothing is required of you tonight. This story asks for no attention it does not earn, and it is built to be lost. Drift when you drift. Edo has 1 million people to put to bed tonight, and it will not notice one more pair of closing eyes. That is the good of visiting a very large city. There is room in it for any amount of sleep. If these quiet nights help you rest, there is one small kindness you can do us. Subscribe so the next world can find you, and leave a word below telling us where in the world you are listening from. We read everyone in the mornings, and the thought of all those quiet rooms going dark, scattered across every country and every time zone, is the best lantern we know. Wherever you are tonight, you are welcome here. This hour is yours, and the one rule of the house, the same as every night. You have my full permission to fall asleep at any moment. There is no ending you must stay awake for. Nothing in this story will startle you or call you back. The whole city we are visiting is arranged around the idea of a safe night. Let it be safe for you too. Here is the road we will walk, though you need not remember it. We come into the city as the sun goes down and the lanterns are lit, street by street. We watch the shops put up their shutters and cross the great bridge at the center of everything. We soak in the bathhouse, stop at the night noodle stall, and learn how a city with no clocks tells its hours by the sound of enormous bells. We climb a fire tower with the Watchman. We walk the narrow lanes where the ordinary families sleep, and drift on the river among the moored boats. We look in on the poet working late, and the innkeepers on the great road, and the cats who own the rooftops. And we end, as we always end in the smallest hours, with the whole city dark and breathing, and the first tofu makers lighting their fires before dawn. So, the sun is low over the western hills, and the bay has gone the color of a copper kettle. Below us, roof upon gray roof, the great city runs to the horizon in every direction, wooden and low and endless, with smoke rising from 10,000 supper fires straight up into the still evening air. Listen, from somewhere among the temples, a bell is beginning to ring, slow and enormous and unhurried, 6 strokes for the hour of sunset. It is not a warning. It is the oldest lullaby this city knows. The great bell counts the hour, and Edo sleeps on. Let us start with the size of the thing, because the size is the wonder, and then we can forget it and get down among the lanterns. Edo has more people than any city on earth, more than London, with its coal smoke and its king, more than Paris, more than Peking, most years, though the two of them trade the crown back and forth without ever knowing it. Somewhere over 1 million people live in the low wooden city around the bay. And the remarkable part is not the number. The remarkable part is the quiet, because this is a city of wood and paper, and it lives at the pace of feet. There are no carriages rattling over cobbles here. Wheeled traffic is rare and slow. A few ox carts for heavy loads and no more. Everything else moves by walking, or by boat along the canals, or on the shoulders of porters who trot through the streets with baskets swinging from poles. 1,000,000 people, and the loudest thing most evenings is a peddler's voice, or a bell, or rain on roofs. The city is enormous, and the city is soft. Few places in the world have ever managed both at once. It is laid out like a spiral shell, if you could see it from a crane's height. At the center, the castle with its moats coiling around it, ring within ring. Around the castle, the great walled estates of the lords, with their gardens and their gate houses. And around those, spreading east to the river and the bay, the low town, the real town, where the merchants and craftsmen and porters and fishmongers live packed together, street by narrow street, in tens of thousands of wooden houses that share their walls like books on a shelf, standing shoulder to shoulder. The people of the low town call themselves the children of Edo, and they are proud in a particular way, proud of quick wit, of good tools, of knowing the newest thing an hour before the next neighborhood knows it, proud above all of the city itself. Nobody here says he lives in a great city. He says the city, as though there were only one, and for 1,000,000 people, there is only one. This evening, the whole shell of it is turning toward night at once. In the west, behind the castle, the sky is still lit. In the low town, the lanes are already dim, and the first lanterns are coming out, here and there, like the first few stars of a constellation that will take an hour to finish rising. We will spend our whole night down among those lanterns in the low town, where the doors are thin and the suppers are loud, and the sleep, when it comes, is the sleep of people who worked with their hands since sunrise. The great bell counts the hour, and Edo sleeps on, or it will very soon. Verse the lamps. Dusk in Edo is a change of materials. All day the city is wood, gray and brown, plain as a toolbox. At dusk it becomes paper and light. The lanterns come out with no signal and no lamplighter. Every house and every shop lights its own. And so the dusk arrives in 10,000 small decisions, one warm rectangle at a time. Paper lanterns swing at the eaves of the shops, painted with the shop's name in fat black strokes. Round lanterns glow at the noodle stalls. Square night lamps are set inside doorways, throwing their light through paper screens, so that a whole street at evening becomes a row of soft-lit boxes, and the people moving inside them are shadows the size of life, pouring tea, folding cloth, lifting children. Paper does something to light that glass never learned. It does not let the flame glare. It takes the flame and spreads it, evens it, makes a surface of it, so that the lantern does not shine at you so much as glow at you. A street of glass lamps is bright and hard. A street of paper lanterns is dim and kind, and you can walk down the middle of it with your eyes wide open and feel them resting. The candle and oil trade knows its own importance. Wax candles are dear, so the low town burns oil, pressed from seeds, in small dishes with a floating wick. The oil seller comes round at dusk with his cans and his measuring ladle, topping up the household lamps, and his call is one of the sounds of the hour, low and worn smooth by repetition. Housewives come out to the door with their lamp dishes, a spoonful of light for the evening. It costs less than a bowl of rice, and it is the difference between a night and a home. Down at the corner, the public notice board has its own lantern, lit by the block elder every evening so that the ordinances can be read after dark. Nobody reads the ordinances after dark. The lantern burns anyway, night after night, year after year, a small official star at the end of the lane, and the children of the block cannot fall asleep in summer until they have seen it lit. And the old people say the lane would feel wrong without it. And they are right. Cities are held together by exactly such small, unnecessary, faithful lights. By full dark, the transformation is complete. The gray wooden city has become a city of warm paper windows, thousands upon thousands of them, running away down every lane, reflected in every canal. From the fire towers, the watchmen look out over a plain of soft glowing squares, like a field of lit tents, like the camp of the calmest army that ever assembled. The great bell counts the hour, and Edo sleeps on, and every sleeper who is not yet asleep is sitting, just now, inside a paper box of light, finishing the day. The shopping streets of the low town close the way a long song ends, verse by verse, with everyone knowing the tune. The great dry goods houses go first. All day their open fronts have been spread with bolts of cloth, indigo and gray and brown, with clerks kneeling among them doing arithmetic on beads faster than the eye can follow. Now the apprentices carry the bolts back into the deep shelves, and the head clerk balances the day in the big ledger with a brush, in beautiful strokes, because in this city, even the bookkeeping is calligraphy. The younger boys slot the heavy wooden shutters into their grooves across the shop front, board by board, top rail and bottom rail, and the shop that was a lit stage all day becomes, in 5 minutes, a blank wooden wall with light leaking at the seams. The sound of it is the sound of the hour. Up and down the street, board after board slides home, each with its own knock and rumble, until the whole quarter has shut its 100 wooden eyelids. It is not a sad sound. It is the sound of a day got through, of stock safe, of supper next. Shopkeepers time each other without admitting it. To be first shut looks anxious. To be last looks slack. The street closes together, roughly, companionably, the way a family rises from a table. Behind the shutters, the shops turn into households. Most of these families live where they work, in the rooms behind and above, and the evening reveals it. Smoke rises from the kitchen vents. The smell of grilling fish and miso soup slips through the shutter seams and takes over the street from the smell of goods. The apprentice boys, who are farm boys mostly, sent to the city at 12 to learn the trade, eat their supper in the back kitchen in strict order of seniority, and the youngest eats last and fastest, as the youngest always has. Here and there a shop keeps a late light. The medicine seller stays open while there is anyone on the street, because need does not keep shop hours, and his little counter with its 100 labeled drawers glows on into the evening. So does the rice cracker stall by the bathhouse, for the after-bath trade, which is the best trade of the day. Clean, warm people are generous. Every merchant in the quarter knows the golden hour is not noon. It is the hour after the bath. By the second bell of the night, even the stragglers are shut. The street lies dim and even, one long corridor of wood and paper lamplight, and the only shopping left is being done by a cat, moving from doorway to doorway down the line, inspecting the smells of the day with the thoroughness of a broker, taking nothing, noting everything. The great bell counts the hour, and Edo sleeps on, and behind 100 shuttered fronts the ledgers are balanced, and the tills are locked, and the apprentices are already asleep with their arms over their eyes. At the 4th bell of evening, all over the low town, a thing happens that no visitor ever expects from the largest city on earth. Edo closes its streets, not the great roads but the small ones, the neighborhood lanes, each of which has, at its mouth, a simple wooden gate, and at the hour of closing, block by block, the gates swing to, and the vast city quietly divides itself into 1,000 small locked villages for the night. Each gate has its keeper, and each keeper has his hut, a box of a house built right against the gate post, hardly bigger than a palanquin, with a brazier, a lamp, a bench, and a window on the lane. The gatekeeper of a block is one of its fixtures, like the well and the notice board. He is usually old, always unhurried, and knows every face that belongs to his lane and most of the business behind every face, and forgets, with great discipline, nearly all of it. The closing is gentle and has its manners. The keeper stands by the gate as the hour comes, greeting the last hurrying humans of the day. The clerk who cut it fine again. The bathhouse stragglers, pink and apologetic. A husband with the particular walk of a man who stayed for one more round of stories, rehearsing his account of events. The keeper has watched this parade for half a lifetime, and his face does the same small things his predecessor's face did. Welcome, welcome. In you go. Nearly missed it. Then the gate shuts, and the pedestrian door within it, a little square door a person must stoop through, becomes the only way in or out until dawn. Late arrivals knock softly, as one knocks at night, and the keeper slides his window, holds up his lamp, and administers the oldest checkpoint in the world. A look belonging to the lane is a thing. A lamp shows at once. In you go, doctor. In you go, midwife, and good luck up there tonight. The night trades pass on their errands, vouched for by their boxes and bags, and the genuinely strange, the lost drunk from 2 districts over, the traveler misdirected by a joker, are not turned away so much as redirected, kindly, with directions of legendary Edo thoroughness, to the gate where they do belong. Why the gates in so safe a city? Old habit partly, from rougher times, and fire discipline partly, since a lane that can be closed can be counted, and a counted lane sleeps better. But mostly, by now, the gates persist because the low town likes them. A shut gate makes an inside. Within it, the lane is one household, and everyone in their bedding, hearing the gate boom softly at the 4th bell, feels the same thing the merchant feels at his shutters, and the castle feels at its moats. The day is now outside. We are all in. The keeper trims his lamp, sets his kettle on the brazier, and begins the night's real work, which is sitting. He is the lane's outermost sleeper and its lightest, dozing upright like a heron. Half the gatekeepers in the city are asleep at their posts within the hour, and the low town knows it, and finds it not a scandal but a comfort. What safer place in the world, the saying goes, than behind a locked gate and a sleeping old man everyone loves? The great bell counts the hour, and Edo sleeps on, in 1,000 latched and lamplit boxes, each with its heron at the door. Every city has one place where it feels itself most itself, and in Edo the place is a bridge. Nihinbashi, the bridge of Japan, humps its wooden back over the canal at the center of the low town, and all the roads of the country are measured from the middle of it. When a signpost in the far mountain says 30 leagues, it means 30 leagues from that plank. Stand on the crown of the bridge, and you are standing officially at the center of the world. By day, it is the busiest 100 paces in the nation. The fish market roars at its northern foot from before dawn. The shopping streets pour across it. Porters and palanquins and pilgrims and clerks thread over its arch in both directions all day long. By this hour, though the flood has run out, the market is long closed and washed down. The last porters have crossed. The bridge at night belongs to strollers, and to lovers taking the air, and to anyone in the city who wants to stand still in the middle of everything for a moment before bed. It is worth the stroll. From the crown of the arch, the canal runs away in both directions, lined with white-walled storehouses, and every storehouse lamp lays a wobbling line of gold on the black water. Moored barges nose together below the parapet, decks tidy, oars shipped. To the west, over the rooftops, the castle hill makes its great dark shape against the last green of the sky. And on a clear evening, far beyond it, floating above the world like something the sky thought of, the white cone of the great mountain, Fuji, catches whatever light is left and holds it after the whole city has gone dim. The people of Edo never tire of that view. Prints of it sell in the thousands, the bridge and the mountain together, and the people who buy them are the people who cross the bridge daily and could see the real thing free. That is not foolishness. It is love. You buy the picture of your own bridge for the same reason you keep a portrait of your own family, to have it near you even when you are near it. An old man is on the bridge tonight, as he is every night in decent weather. He fished from this parapet as a boy, when the shoguns were younger. Now he comes for the air and stands at the middle rail, hands folded on his stick, and watches the water go under. His granddaughter thinks he goes to remember. He would tell you if you asked that he goes because the bridge is the best place in the city to feel it breathing. The tide moves under the arch, in with the evening, out before dawn, and the whole low town lifts and settles on it, boats and reflections and all, twice a day, like a chest rising and falling. He stays for the length of one pipe, taps it out over the water, and shuffles home. The bridge stands empty then, arched over its own reflection, the exact center of a sleeping country. The great bell counts the hour, and Edo sleeps on, and the tide slides under the middle of the world, in no hurry on its way to the bay. At the northern foot of the great bridge lies the loudest acre in Japan, and tonight, like every night, it is performing its one daily miracle. It is silent. The fish market of Nihinbashi, which at dawn will roar like surf, lies washed and empty under its lanterns, and its rest is as deliberate as its riot, and both are worth seeing. By day, this is where the bay becomes the city's food. The boats land at the water stairs from first light, and the catch comes up in tubs and baskets, bream and flounder and mackerel, shrimp still flexing, eels the sellers handle like rope, and over it all the auctioneers work in a chant that outsiders take for a foreign language, and insiders take for money. The great houses' cooks come early. The fishmongers' boys run relays to every quarter, and by mid-morning, the acre has fed 1 million people their day's fish, and stands littered with the day's bright leavings. And then, each afternoon, the tide of work turns and the market cleans itself. This is the part the city never watches, and the part the market is proudest of. Every board is scrubbed, every tub scalded and stacked mouth down, every scale and fin swept to the compost boats, the stone gutters flushed with harbor water until they run clear. Fish is a trade with no patience for yesterday. A market that smells of last week is a market dying, and this one intends to live forever. And so, at sunset, the loudest acre in Japan gleams like a scrubbed kitchen, smelling of salt water and wet wood and almost nothing else. Now, deep in the night, it waits in perfect order. The auction stands are bare. The knives, the famous knives, longer than swords some of them, for the great tuna, are oiled and racked behind the shuttered stalls. The lanterns at the corners burn low over empty walkways, and the moored fish boats nose the water stairs in the dark, hulls scrubbed, holds open to air. The only movement is the harbor cats, who patrol the boards out of respect for history, finding nothing, expecting nothing, unable to stay away. A market cat believes in the market the way the faithful believe in the temple. An empty midnight does not shake that faith one bit. In the sleeping lanes around the acre live the market families, brokers and mongers and knife men, and they sleep like their workplace, hard and early. For the bell that rules this quarter is not the temple bell but the tide. Before the fourth hour of night has run out, the first of them will be up in the dark, and the boats will be standing out to the bay. And by the time the rest of the city wakes, the acre will be roaring again, wet and silver and bright, as though silence had never touched it. The market and its rest, the roar and the scrubbed hush, are one thing, not two. The low town knows this in its bones. Anything that works that hard must sleep that completely, city and market and listener alike. The great bell counts the hour, and Edo sleeps on, and at the empty heart of tomorrow's plenty, one lantern burns over clean, wet boards, keeping the smell of salt company till the boats come in. Between the day and the night, Edo has a hinge, and the hinge is hot water. Every few blocks of the low town keeps a public bathhouse, and in the hour after the shops shut, the whole city, more or less, passes through them, and comes out the other side clean, pink, and fit for sleep. The houses here have no baths of their own. There is no room, and firewood is dear. And in a city of wood and paper, the fewer fires the better. So bathing is public, and cheap and daily, and nobody thinks anything of it, any more than they think about the well or the street. The bathhouse is simply where the day is rinsed off, and it is also, not incidentally, where the neighborhood happens. Inside, the evening runs at full tide. The washing room clatters with buckets and dippers. You scrub first, seated thoroughly, because the great tub is for soaking, not washing, and going in unscrubbed is the deepest social offense the low town recognizes. Then through the low door into the soaking room, dim and thick with steam, where the water is kept at a heat that visitors from other provinces frankly describe as an ordeal, and the children of Edo describe as correct. And there, in the hot water up to their chins, the neighborhood sits, the tofu maker and the carpenter and the clerk, the old woman who sells morning greens, and the young wife from the corner house. Rank comes off with the day's clothes. In the tub there are only neighbors, boiled equal, and the talk is everything at once. The price of oil, the autumn festival, whose daughter is being married, whether the new wrestler from the north can possibly be as large as everyone says. The talk is the point, as much as the heat. 1,000,000 people is too many to know. A bathhouse is exactly enough. The bathhouse keeper's boy stokes the furnace from the alley behind, feeding it wood shavings and offcuts bought from the carpenters, so the whole quarter's sawdust ends its days warming the whole quarter's backs. It is the kind of arrangement this city is quietly full of. The keeper himself sits at the high desk between the entrances, taking coins, keeping order with his eyebrows, seeing everything, forgetting most of it on purpose. A good bathhouse keeper is half innkeeper, half magistrate and wholly discreet. By the second bell of night, the tide has gone out. The last soakers climb out slow and scarlet, dress loose, and wander home through the cool air with towels over their shoulders, glowing like lanterns themselves, stopping at the cracker stall, greeting each other with the particular mellow courtesy of the freshly boiled. The keeper's family takes its own bath last. In water they have earned twice over. Then the fires are banked, raked low and covered so the great tub cools slowly overnight, and the morning heat comes quicker. The boy who stokes sleeps in the little room by the furnace, warmest bed in the block, and every dog in the alley knows it. And on cold nights, the arrangement between the boy and the dogs is long-standing and strictly unofficial. The great bell counts the hour, and Edo sleeps on. It sleeps cleaner than any city its size, and warmer under the blankets for the soaking. Deep in the night lanes, when the shutters are up and the lanterns are burning low, one small light goes traveling. It is a cart, carried on a pole across one man's shoulders, with a tiny charcoal stove at one end and a cabinet of noodles at the other, and a paper lantern swinging from its roof beam. This is the night Soba seller, and he is the low town's last comfort, open for business wherever you are standing. His round is long and slow, and entirely his own. He works the streets where the late people are, near the bathhouse for the last bathers, past the gambling room, discreetly at the hour when luck runs out, along the theater street when the doors let out, by the fire towers and the gate posts, where the night watchmen, who cannot leave their posts, listen for his particular call the way children listen for a festival. The call is 2 notes on a little brass horn, high then low, carrying down the empty lanes. Soba, hot soba. Every quarter of the city knows the sound, and something in it belongs to night itself. Day noodles are food. Night noodles are rescue. The 2 notes come floating around the corner, and whoever hears them remembers at once that they are cold and hungry, and that a single warm thing before bed would set the whole day right. Watch him serve a customer, because it is a small perfect ceremony. The cart comes to rest. The lantern steadies. A nest of noodles goes into the bamboo strainer and down into the steaming kettle, swirled twice, lifted, drained with 3 sharp shakes and turned into the bowl. Broth over, ladled from the pot that has been riding at a whisper of a simmer all night, smelling of soy and dried fish and something sweet underneath, a scatter of spring onion. The bowl passes into 2 waiting hands, and the hands wrap around it, and for one moment the customer simply stands there holding it, warming his palms, breathing the steam before the first slurp. That moment is half of what the money buys. The slurp itself is loud, approving and correct. Noodles here are drawn in with a will, and the sound is not rudeness but applause. Tonight his customers are the usual parish of the late. 2 watchmen, a returning traveler with dust on his leggings, a young clerk who has been kept working past all reason and eats at the cart with his eyes shut, swaying slightly, an old woman who cannot sleep and does not try anymore, comes for the company as much as the broth. The seller serves her a little extra, and neither of them has mentioned it ever in 11 years. Toward the deepest hour he turns for home, cart creaking on its pole, stove down to its last coals, kettle light. His lantern goes away down the lane, smaller and smaller, a single warm dot swaying through the sleeping city, and the 2 brass notes sound one last time at the far corner, faint as memory. Anyone lying awake to hear them smiles in the dark, and is asleep before the echo settles. The great bell counts the hour, and Edo sleeps on, with one last warm bowl somewhere in its darkened streets, moving like a firefly toward home. Here is a thing to be wondered at, drowsily from under a quilt. This city of 1,000,000 runs to the minute, and it does not own a public clock. Edo tells its time out loud, in bronze, and the system is so simple and so vast that it takes a moment to believe. Across the city, in the yards of certain temples, hang the great bells, taller than a man, thick as a barrel, green-black with age, each one under its own roof tower. They do not swing. A hanging beam, drawn back on ropes and let go, strikes each bell from outside, and the note that comes out is less a sound than a weather. It rolls out over the rooftops, slow and enormous, with a long bronze afterglow that hums in the ribs a full breath after the ear has finished with it. The hours here are counted in strokes, and the day is divided the old way, 6 hours of light and 6 of darkness. So the bells ring 9, then 8, then 7, down through the day and again through the night. The low town also keeps a simpler tally after dark, counting the night's bells as they come. First bell, second, third, the way sailors count their watches. That is how we have been counting tonight. Before the counting strokes, 3 quick preparatory notes, so that no one loses count for being startled at the first blow. Everything in the design is courteous. The bell warns you it is about to inform you. The ringing itself is a job, held for generations by the same bell families, and the night ringing is its solemn branch. Tonight, at the temple by the river, the ringer's son climbs the tower platform for the third bell of night. He hauls the beam back, sights along it without needing to, and lets it fly. The stroke goes out over the parish like a slow wave over a still pond. He counts his measured pause, exact as his father's, and strikes again. Across the dark city, other towers answer, near ones clear, far ones soft. The same hour spreading outward in rings until the whole million-roofed plain of Edo has been told, gently in its sleep, what time it is, and the city hears it without waking. That is the art of a life lived by bells. The sleeping ear keeps its own ledger. A merchant asleep in his shuttered shop hears the third bell and stirs no more than a boat at its mooring. But let the bell ring off its hour, and he would stir in his sleep, frowning, sensing it without waking. The bells are the city's pulse, and like a pulse, they are only ever noticed when they falter, and they do not falter. For those still awake, the night bells are company of the best kind. The poet at his lamp hears the stroke, and lays down his brush to listen to the long hum die. The Soba seller times his homeward turn by it. The mother with a fretting infant counts the strokes over the small hot head and thinks, only one more bell until he sleeps. They always sleep by the fourth bell, and she is nearly always right. Bronze, rope, a beam, a man who shows up. No gears, no winding, no glass, just attention, handed down, ringing. The great bell counts the hour, and Edo sleeps on, which is not a figure of speech after all, but the plain, nightly truth of the place. Above the low roofs of every quarter stands a skeletal wooden tower with a ladder, a platform, and a bell of its own. And on the platform, all night, every night, stands a man looking at the city. He is the fire watch, and he has the most serious, quiet job in Edo. And we can climb up and stand with him, since neither of us weighs anything tonight. Fire is this wooden city's one great fear. Everyone in Edo lives with the knowledge, the way port towns live with storms. And so the city watches. From up here, the watchman can see his whole parish of roofs, gray shingle and dark tile, running away to the neighboring tower's parish, and beyond that to the next, a whole horizon of small platforms, each with its man, each man watching, so that the entire city lies all night under a net of open eyes. The work is looking, hour upon hour, and the skill is in what the eye learns. Cooking smoke reads differently from trouble. A lantern crossing a courtyard is nothing. The watchman's eye sorts the city's small lights without effort now, 40 years into the trade, and mostly what he does, honestly, is stand in the cold and know everything is well. That is the job, knowing it is well, all night from a height, on behalf of everyone below who has stopped watching. His equipment is a bell rope, a drum, and a board of signals older than his grandfather. Distant trouble, slow strokes. Near trouble, fast. Tonight, as on almost every night of his long service, the rope hangs still, and he is glad of it, and a little proud, in the way of men whose finest work is that nothing happened. Between the hour bells, he makes his small rounds of the platform. He checks the water barrel and the coiled rope. He notes the wind, which is from the north tonight, light and clean, a good safe wind. He eats the rice ball his granddaughter wrapped for him, facing south, where the bay is, because he has eaten facing the water his whole working life, and sees no reason to change a thing that works. Below him the parish sleeps its trusting sleep. He knows it house by house. The bathhouse with its banked furnace, done properly. He checked the smoke at dusk as he always does. The oil shop shuttered tight. The row houses down the lane, where the lamps have gone out one by one in the order they always go out. The carpenter first, the young clerk last. He watches the last paper window go dark. He feels the small nightly settling in his chest that has no name he knows of. The feeling of a flock folded, of a lid set on, of a parish handed over, whole and safe to the night. Far off, the third bell of night comes rolling over the roofs, and after it, faint, from the next tower north, he hears his neighbor cough. 40 years they have kept these two platforms, a bowshot apart, and never once spoken. They are, by any measure that matters, old friends. The great bell counts the hour, and Edo sleeps on, under a net of quiet men in the cold, watching over it with their hands in their sleeves. Off every shopping street run the narrow lanes, and along every lane run the nagaya, the long houses. And this is where Edo actually lives. A long house is exactly what its name says. One low wooden building, running back from the street, divided into little dwellings wall against wall, each with its sliding door onto the shared lane. One roof, 10 families. The low town is made of tens of thousands of these, packed like honeycomb, and the lane between them is the true room where the neighborhood's life is kept. Each dwelling is small in a way that sounds impossible and works daily. One earthen-floored entry where the cooking is done, one matted room behind it, and that is the whole estate. In it a family sleeps, eats, works, argues, and raises children, and the arrangement runs on the great Japanese art of putting away. By day the bedding lies folded in the closet, and the room is a workshop, a parlor, a nursery. At night the low table is stood on end. The futons come down and unroll wall to wall, and the workshop becomes, in 3 minutes, one warm floor of sleepers. A room here is not a fixed thing. It is whatever the hour needs it to be, and the hour now needs it to be a bed. The lane itself has gone quiet by this bell. All day it is the common yard, strung with laundry, loud with children, centered on the shared well where the wives meet, and the news of the block is refined to a high polish. The well talk of a Nagaya Lane is a newspaper that prints hourly, and no event in the quarter survives uncorrected past noon. Now the buckets hang still. The children are down. The lane cat has taken up her post on the warm boards outside the tofu maker's door, first in line for tomorrow. Listen along the row instead. The long house at night is one building, and it breathes like one. Through the thin plank walls, 10 households make a single settling sound. A father's low voice finishing a story, half the words gone to sleep already. The clink of a supper bowl being rinsed in the dark. An infant briefly, and the creak of a mother beginning the old walk. 4 steps and turn, 4 steps and turn. An old man's cough, answered, wall by wall, by the small stirrings of people who know that cough and no longer wake for it. Privacy in a Nagaya is not silence. It is the courtesy of not hearing, practiced until it is real. And there is the deeper thing, under the thin walls and the shared roof, the thing the whole lane knows without saying. Nobody here is alone in the dark. The widow at the lane's end sleeps 8 inches of pine from a family that would hear her call. The apprentice with the fever tonight has had 3 soups brought to his door since dusk, none of them requested. None of them refused. The longhouse keeps no locks worth the name, and needs none. Its wealth is all in people, lying close, breathing in rows under one long roof, the way it does every night, the way it has for generations. The great bell counts the hour, and Edo sleeps on. 10 families to a roof, one warm wall apart, all the way down every lane in the city. Before any household in this city sleeps, one small ceremony happens at the back of it, in the dim, warm corner where the stove lies. And it is the same ceremony from the grandest merchant house to the narrowest room in the long houses. Tomorrow's rice is made ready tonight. However the day went, whatever the purse holds. The rice is washed, measured, and set to soak in its pot in the dark. And a house where that has been done is a house that can let go of the day. The Edo kitchen is a small, exact place. An earthen floor, a clay stove with its firewood alcove, a water jar filled from the well, shelves of nested bowls, and the pickle crocks along the wall, each under its weighted lid, holding the family's other constant, radish and cucumber and plum, put down in salt and rice bran in their seasons, tended daily, stirred by the grandmother's hand by preference, since everyone agrees the crock answers to its keeper, and a good pickle bed, like a good indigo vat, is a living thing with a memory, older sometimes than the marriage it serves. Supper here was early and plain and hot. Rice, soup, a grilled fish or a simmered vegetable, pickles to finish, tea over the last of the rice if the evening is cold. The low town eats the same supper 10,000 times over every night. The 10,000 small variations are the whole subject of well-side conversation, and it is as good a supper as any city in the world eats, though it would be considered boasting to say so. So it is said constantly. Now the kitchen is done and settling. The bowls are rinsed and stacked in their sizes. The fire is raked down to a seat of coals, buried in ash to sleep until morning. The one ember every house keeps alive like a small domestic god. For striking fresh fire is work and borrowing embers from the neighbors, while perfectly usual costs a conversation. The stove holds its warmth into the night, and the kitchen corner stays the softest air in the house, which the cat established long ago and permits no revision of. And in the pot in the dark the rice soaks, white grains under clear water, swelling slowly toward morning, the plainest sight in Japan and the deepest one. Rice here is not food among foods. It is the measure under everything. Wages and taxes and wealth all reckoned in it, and a covered pot of it, soaking in a dark kitchen, is the whole social order at rest. The day's work turned into tomorrow's breakfast, the future put where the family can find it. The grandmother checks the buried ember last thing, pats the pickle lid as one pats a horse, and goes to her bedding. In 6 hours the seed of fire will be breathed back to flame. The pot will go on to boil, and the first smell of the new day, all over the million-headed city, will be the same smell it was yesterday and will be tomorrow, steam off the morning rice, rising from 10,000 kitchens at once, like the city saying its own name. The great bell counts the hour, and Edo sleeps on, and in every darkened house the rice soaks and the ember waits, and between the two of them tomorrow is already half made. The great merchant houses of the main streets go to bed the way ships come into harbor, by stages, with everything made fast in its order, and it is worth following one household through the whole gentle drill. This one deals in cotton cloth, and has for 4 generations. The shop is the front of the building, the family lives behind and above, and between the two runs the long earthen corridor where the day's last business is finishing now. The head of the house sits at the low desk, closing the ledger. His wife, who runs the money in fact if not in name, as merchant wives here generally do, sits across from him with the coin box, and the evening count proceeds in the old duet. He reads the entries. She stacks and wraps the coins. Neither has caught the other in an error since the rain before this one, and neither has stopped checking. In the kitchen, the last rice of the day is being pressed into tomorrow's breakfast tubs, and the cook banks the stove with the seriousness of a priest. For the kitchen fire is the household's one nightly danger, and she has kept it half her life without incident. The apprentices lay out the shop for morning before they sleep, cloth squared, counters wiped, so that the day will open like a drawer. Then they climb to their loft, 6 boys in a row under one long quilt, and are asleep in the time it takes to stop talking. The house shrine gets its evening attention. A little shelf, high on a pillar, with its tablets and its tiny lamp. The old grandmother lights it, puts her hands together briefly, and reports the day to the ancestors in a businesslike murmur. Sales fair, family well, the youngest boys cold improving. The ancestors, 4 generations of cloth merchants, receive the news as they always have. It is not clear to anyone, least of all the grandmother, how much of this is faith and how much is habit, and it does not matter. A house where the dead are told the news each evening is a house that knows what it is. Last of all, the master walks the building. Every merchant house has this ritual, and every master does it alone. Shutters, latches, the big front lock, the kitchen fire, banked and lidded, checked with a bare palm held over it. The lamp wicks counted out. The corridor dark. He walks it by feel, board by known board, and the house creaks its familiar creaks around him. Would answering wait in the same places it has answered his father's wait and his grandfather's. And somewhere in the walk, every night, there is one breath where the house is not property but ancestor, the oldest member of the family, holding all the others inside its ribs. He climbs the stair. The bedding is down, the room is warm. His wife is already asleep with the coin box at her head, which is where it has slept for 4 generations and where it will sleep tonight. The great bell counts the hour, and Edo sleeps on, and the shop below dreams in bolts of indigo, squared and ready for morning. Everywhere along the canals, between the wooden houses, stand buildings of a different kind, white, windowless, thick-walled, with heavy double doors and roofs that seem too big for them. These are the cura, the storehouses, and they are the low town's answer to its own great fear. And at night, lined up along the black water in their pale rows, they are strangely beautiful, like a fleet at anchor. A cura is a fortress for things. Its walls are earth and plaster over a timber heart, a foot thick and more, finished smooth and white as an egg. Its doors are layered like armor, and close on rabbets a hand deep. If fire ever troubles a quarter, a well-made cura simply shuts its eyes. It seals its seams with wet clay kept ready in buckets, and waits, warm-shelled and unbothered, until the trouble has passed. Whatever the years bring, the quarter builds itself back around those calm white survivors, each standing patient over its kept wealth. The cura are how Edo remembers itself. Inside, in the dry dark, the wealth of the low town sleeps in bales and chests. Silk and cotton, paper, indigo, lacquerware nested in straw, the ledger archives of firms, the dowry chests of families, sake in ranked barrels, and rice, above all rice. For rice here is money in the fullest sense. The measure all wealth is counted in. A merchant standing can be read from the canal by anyone. Count his cura. The great houses keep rows of them, numbered, whitewashed fresh each spring, and the whitewashing week is a festival of ladders up and down every canal in the city. The storehouse men make their last round at dusk, checking the clay buckets, the door seams, the high vents. Then the great doors are swung shut, and the sound of a cura door closing is unlike any other in the city. A deep soft boom with no ring in it at all, the sound of thickness itself. Padlocks the size of loaves go through the hasps. The keys ride home on the clerk's belt, and the buildings are left to their work, which is simply to stand there, dense and patient, all night every night for 100 years. The canal watchman pulls past them on his slow round, lantern doubling in the water, and the white walls hand his light one to the next all down the row. Rats have opinions about the cura, and the cura's opinion of rats is expressed in stone footings, tin sheathing, and the largest, Most professional cats in the city, who hold their storehouse posts by appointment, are fed by the clerks on the books, entered under wages, and know it. The great bell counts the hour, and Edo sleeps on, and its treasure sleeps apart from it, sealed in white, so that whatever the night ever brings, the morning can begin again. East of the bridge, the low town runs down to the Sumida, the city's great river, and at night the river is the widest quiet in Edo. A broad, black, easy water sliding between the lantern banks, and everything on it moves at drifting pace, including us. The day boats are done. The ferries that stitch bank to bank all day lie nosed up at their landings, and the freight barges are moored in rafts, 3 and 4 abreast, tied gunwale to gunwale so that boatmen can cross from deck to deck like walking a floating lane. Many live aboard, and the moored rafts at night are a village of their own. Small stoves glow in stern shelters. Wash hangs on lines between masts. A baby is asleep in a coil of rope, which its mother would tell you is the best cradle ever made, rocked by the river all night and smelling of tar and sun. Downstream, the last pleasure boats are finishing their evenings. Long, low craft with paper lanterns strung bow to stern, hired for moon viewing and supper on the water, poling home now with their parties grown quiet. The samisen player in the stern has stopped playing and holds her instrument wrapped against the damp, and the guests sit looking at the water, in that state of mild, sweet melancholy that a good evening leaves behind it, which the people of this city do not fight, but rather prize and have 100 poems about. The great wooden bridges stride over the dark water at long intervals, each with its little constellation of late lanterns crossing. Under the arches, the current talks to the pilings, the same low syllables all night. Fishermen work the slack water there, night fishing with lamps, and the smallest boats carry a brazier at the bow whose light draws the fish and lays a trembling column of gold down into the black. On the far bank, the city thins into temple districts and rice land, and the night side of the river is softer than the town side, all reeds and moored punts, and the occasional heron statue that turns out, on drifting closer, to be a heron. Autumn insects ring in the bank grass, that high silver ringing this country listens for and grieves the ending of, since it means the year is folding up. Tonight the ringing is still strong, and the boat people fall asleep to it, the river's own bells, 10,000 tiny ones, counting no hour at all. An old poem says this river is time. Everything on it tonight argues otherwise, gently. The moored rafts, the sleeping baby in the rope, the lamp fishermen holding their little towers of light against the current. Time does pass here, but at night, on the Sumida, it passes the way the water passes a mooring, touching everything, taking nothing that was tied on properly. The great bell counts the hour, and Edo sleeps on, and the river carries the sound of it seaward, along with the moon. Away from the great river, the water goes small and everywhere. Edo is laced with canals, the way cloth is laced with thread. They bring the rice to the storehouses and the timber to the yards, the fish to the market and the stone to the castle, and they do it silently, on flat black water, day and night, which is one deep reason a million people can live here so quietly. The heaviest work in the city floats. By this hour the working canals have gone still, and still water in a lantern city is the medium of small magic. Every bridge lamp and gate light and late window stands upside down in it, perfected. A canal at night is a street where only the lights walk, and the low town's children grow up believing, for a year or two each, that there is a second city under the water where it is always evening, which is a reasonable thing to believe since there is, and you can see it from any bridge rail, trembling. A few boats are still abroad, and they are the night's own. The vegetable boats from the eastern gardens slide in loaded for the morning markets, pulled by men who sleep in the afternoons, their loads smelling of earth and cut greens, radishes white as porcelain stacked in patterns a shopkeeper would envy. The night soil boats make their rounds too, on the same tide, carrying the city's waste out to the farm districts where it is not waste at all but purchased fertility, part of the great circular housekeeping by which this city and its fields feed each other, and almost nothing in a million lives is thrown away. The boatmen know the water dark, the way the watchman knows his roofs. Every bridge clearance at every tide height, every gate, every corner where two canals meet and the poling changes hands. They pass each other with a low word or none, poles dipping without splash, and the etiquette of the narrow water is old and complete. Loaded gives way to empty at the mouths. Everyone gives way to the fire boats. No one hurries because on water, hurry is the loudest thing there is. At the timber district in the east, the canals widen into pools where the great logs float in sordid herds, cedar and pine rafted down from the mountains, waiting for the saws. The log pools at night are a strange calm country. The watchman there walks his rounds on the timber itself, stepping raft to raft over black water, lantern in hand, as sure-footed as a man crossing his own kitchen floor. The logs shift and knock under him, slow and hollow, the herd resettling, and that knocking carries across the pools like the city talking in its sleep, in its oldest voice, wood on water. The great bell counts the hour, and Edo sleeps on, and its 1,000 water lanes hold the lamplight and the quiet together all night, like cupped hands. West of the low town, above the rooftops, the land rises, and on the rise stands the thing the whole spiral city coils around. Edo Castle. It is the largest castle on earth, though the world does not know it, and at night it is less a building than a dark country lifted into the sky, ringed with water, crowned with pines. The moats come first, ring within ring, wide as rivers. They hold the city's lamplight at their outer edges, and perfect blackness at their hearts. The stone walls rise out of the water in long, sweeping curves. Fitted granite blocks the size of ox carts, leaning back against their hill with a grace that disguises their mass. Above the walls, the white watchtowers stand at the angles, ghostly in the starlight, and behind everything spread the shadowed groves and roofs of the inner precincts, acre upon acre, where the shogun's government lives and works and is, at this hour, almost entirely asleep. The great gates shut at dusk, with a ceremony older than anyone serving in it. Drums, ropes, the boom of timber, the rattle of the passing bar. After that, the castle turns inward, and the city lets it go. The guards at the bridge heads settle into their gatehouses for the long watch, braziers glowing, and their night is the same night as the fire watchmen's. Hours of formal nothing, faithfully attended. The samurai on duty walk their measured circuits under the pines. An owl works the inner gardens, which are the best owl territory in the city, and are held, like everything else in there, by appointment. The low town regards the castle at night the way coastal people regard a mountain inland. It is simply there, the fixed dark shape all directions are reckoned from, and its silence is part of the city's weather. 1,000,000 people arrange their sleep around that quiet center without thinking of it. Perhaps that is what such a center is for. Every city has a heart, and this one's heart is not a market or a temple but a held stillness behind water. And whatever one thinks of the lords in their halls, the stillness itself is a public work. It steadies the whole plain of roofs around it, the way a heavy stone steadies a boat. Once tonight, a single line of lanterns crosses the far bridge and vanishes into a gate. Some official returning late, some message that could not wait for morning. The lights double in the moat, waver, and are gone, and the black water heals over the place they were, and the castle resumes its enormous dark composure, which it will hold until the dawn drums. The great bell counts the hour, and Edo sleeps on. It lies coiled warm around its silent center, ring within ring within ring. Folded in among the lord's estates, behind long walls the low town never sees over, lie the great gardens of Edo. And on a clear autumn night like this one, with the moon well up, they are doing the exact work they were designed for, which is to be perfect with nobody watching. A garden here is not a bed of flowers. It is a made landscape, years in the shaping, a whole country in miniature. There are hills built by hand and carpeted in moss. There is a lake with a shoreline more considered than most real shorelines, and islands in the lake, and a pine on the island, trained sideways over the water for 80 years by 3 successive gardeners, none of whom regarded the work as slow. There are stone lanterns placed where light should live, and bridges that arch just enough, and paths raked this evening in long curved strokes, so that the first walker tomorrow will step into a garden apparently untouched since the world began. By day, these places serve their lords. Tonight the garden keeps its own company. The moon has taken over the lake, laying down a road of light from shore to island. The trained pine holds its dark arm out over the silver water, in exactly the gesture 80 years of hands intended. The autumn insects ring in the deep grass at the garden's edges, and a fish touches the surface once, sending rings across the moon road. And everything about the moment is, by every rule of the art, the garden at its very best, and no one sees it. And this does not matter at all. The gardeners have a saying about that. The garden does not perform. The garden simply is. And being seen is the visitor's luck, not the garden's need. One gardener is here even now, as it happens. The old head gardener who sleeps badly in autumn has let himself in by the service gate, as he does some nights, and sits on the maintenance bench, out of sight even of the moon, listening to his territory. He can hear the lake against the stones. He can hear a leaf come down through the branches of the great maple, touch by touch, all the way to the moss, and he notes from the sound alone that the maple has begun to turn and will need its full crew within the week. Autumn in a garden of this rank is a campaign, planned like a harvest, and the falling of leaves is not a mess here, but a season of appointments. He sits a while longer, in the ringing dark, in the middle of his life's work, wanting nothing. Then he lets himself out, latching the gate with the softness of long habit, and walks home through the sleeping lanes, an old man smelling faintly of moss, entirely unknown to the city he ornaments. The great bell counts the hour, and Edo sleeps on, and behind the long walls the moon crosses the lake alone, over the rings of one fish, past the arm of one patient pine. In the northeast of the city, where the streets give way to groves, the temple districts begin, and at night they are Edo's deep still margin. The quiet the whole loud day floats on. By day, the great temple grounds are the most crowded acres in the city. The approach streets roar with stalls and pilgrims, sellers of rice crackers and toys and medicines, fortune papers tied in their thousands to every rack and branch. The vast main halls receive rivers of people, coins raining into the offertory chests, smoke rising from the great incense burners where visitors wash themselves in the fragrant clouds. A festival day here moves more people than most cities contain. Now the approach street lies bare and swept, shutters up, banners taken in. The stone lanterns burn, low down the long avenue. The great gate stands open, for these gates are rarely shut, and beyond it the court spread empty under the stars, acres of raked gravel and worn flagstone, silvered by the moon. The pagoda lays its long moon shadow across the flagstones, and nothing else moves. The night here belongs to the monks' small hours. Lamps move in the cloisters at set times, from hall to hall, somewhere deep in the residence quarters. A bell no bigger than a bucket marks the offices of the night. A house bell, humble cousin of the great one in the yard, and lines of low chanting rise and settle again, a sound like slow water over stones, older than the city by 1,000 years. The great image in the main hall sits in the dark with one flame before it, gold face unbothered, eyes half closed, holding the exact expression it has held through fires and rebuildings, and the rise of this whole million-headed town, the expression of something that has taken the very long view and finds it good. Under the eaves, the temple pigeons sleep in rows. In the graveyard behind, generations of the parish lie in their moss under leaning stones, and their part of the district is the quietest and least sad place in the whole city tonight, ringing softly with insects, visited by the cat on her rounds, tended, remembered, entirely at rest. The pagoda holds the stars on its spire. The incense burner cools, keeping its sweetness. And through it all, at the appointed hour, the ringer's son crosses the yard to the great bell tower, hauls back the beam, and sends the deep stroke rolling out over the sleeping parishes. And the sound leaves the temple like a blessing leaving a hand. The great bell counts the hour, and Edo sleeps on, and the quiet at the city's edge holds steady, the way a rim holds a wheel. There is a stretch of the low town where the lanes are named for trades, and walking it at night is like walking through a toolbox that has been closed for the evening. Carpenter's Row, the dyer's lane, the street of the tatami makers. Every house is a workshop, every workshop is a house, and the whole quarter has put its tools to bed with the same care other districts give their children. The carpenter's shop is swept to the last curl of shaving. His planes lie in their box, blades drawn back, each wrapped against the damp, and his saws hang on the wall in order of size, like a family lined up for a portrait. Edo carpenters are the aristocrats of the trades, and their tools are their patents of nobility, hand-forged, inherited, named sometimes. The master's best plane was his master's, and the blade has been sharpened so many times over 2 working lifetimes that it is half its born width, and it will go to the senior apprentice someday, and the apprentice knows it and works accordingly. The dyer's lane smells of indigo, that deep green-blue smell that never leaves it, soaked into the boards and the ground itself. The vats sleep under their wooden lids, living vats, kept warm and fed like stock animals. For indigo is a fermentation, and a good vat is years old and has moods. The dyer checked them last thing, as he always does, lifting each lid for a look and a sniff. And the drying poles stand empty now. But all day tomorrow the lane will be roofed with drying cloth again, long blue banners of it, snapping softly, throwing blue light down on everyone below, which is why the children of this lane, according to the rest of the quarter, are all born calm. The tatami maker's stacks of fresh mats sent his whole block with cut rush. The smell every person in this city means when they say the word home. The paper maker's screens lean in ranks. The lantern painter's brushes stand washed in their jar. And tomorrow's lanterns hang in rows overhead, blank white, waiting for names. In every one of these houses, the family sleeps within arm's reach of the trade. The futons come down in the workroom itself, among the benches and the good smells, and the children of the quarter grow up sleeping inside their inheritance, breathing sawdust or indigo or rush, hearing the trade in their dreams. A boy born in Carpenter's Row can tell cedar from pine before he can read. A dyer's daughter knows the smell of a vat gone wrong the way other children know thunder. The trades pass down here not as lessons but as childhood itself, absorbed whole, along every lane, every night in sleep. The great bell counts the hour, and Edo sleeps on. 10,000 sharpened, oiled, wrapped, and ordered tools sleep with it, like the city's own hands folded for the night. Out on the black canals, one more cargo is still moving tonight, and in this season it is the dearest one. Charcoal. The cold is coming down from the north, a little more each night, and the city that cooks and warms itself over small fires is laying in its black harvest, boatload by boatload, and the charcoal trade in autumn is the low town's quiet race against winter. The charcoal comes from the hills, days away. Up there in villages the city never sees, the burners tend their earthen kilns through the autumn, hardwood going in, slow smoke standing over the ridges for a week at a time. What comes out is light, dry and full of held summers, and it travels down the rivers in sacks and bales, barge after barge, to the charcoal wharves on the eastern canals. Tonight 2 late boats are still working their way in, low in the water, their loads mounded and matted against the damp. The boatmen pole gently. Charcoal is a cargo you keep dry and keep calm, and the men who carry it move like men carrying eggs, though each boat holds a winter's warmth for 40 households. At the wharf, the dealer's men are waiting with barrows by lantern light, and the unloading goes quickly and almost silently, sack to shoulder to shed, until the boats ride high again and the shed doors are rolled shut on blackness stacked to the beams. The charcoal sellers' sheds smell like no other place in the city, dry, sweet, faintly of smoke that has not happened yet. Inside, the grades are kept apart like teas, the rough billets for kitchen stoves, the middling sort for the shop braziers, and the fine white charcoal, hard as porcelain, ringing when 2 pieces touch, that burns clean and long and costs accordingly, for the tea masters and the great houses. The dealer knows his customers' winters by heart. So many sacks for the bathhouse, so much fine white for the tea house by the bridge, a quiet ledger of the city's coming cold, written in black. From these sheds all winter, the warmth will go out by handcart morning after morning, to the 10,000 braziers and stoves of the low town, into the shopkeeper's hand warmer, under the kettle at the gatekeeper's hut, into the foot warmer that will ride inside an old woman's quilt like a small tame son. Every one of those small fires will be a piece of a summer hillside, saved by patient men in the mountains, floated down dark rivers by night, and stacked in these sheds against exactly the coldest hour of the coming year. The boatmen take their pay and their cup of hot water at the dealer's brazier, which burns, naturally, the best of the stock. They warm their hands at their own cargo, as boatmen of this trade have always done, and pole away home down the Black Canal, riding light. The great bell counts the hour, and Edo sleeps on, and its winter lies stacked and dry in the dark by the eastern canals, waiting its turn to be warm. There is one street in the low town that runs on its own clock, and it is the Theater Street, where the great kabuki houses stand side by side with their towers and their banners, and its night begins when the play ends, and its quiet when it finally comes is the deepest professional quiet in Edo. The theaters here play from morning to dusk, a whole day of drama in one sitting, and the audiences come with their lunches, and their gossip and their fierce expertise. By the final curtain, the crowd pouring into the evening street has lived a full second life since breakfast, love and treachery and snow and drums, and it disperses slowly, reluctant, still half in the play, quoting lines to itself over noodles at the stalls that exist precisely to catch people in this condition. The tea houses along the street take the grander patrons, and for an hour or two the lanterns blaze and the street rings with talk. Which actor rose tonight and which was tired? How the new play compares to the fabled production of 20 years ago, which grows greater every year it recedes. The connoisseurs of this street hold opinions the way samurai hold swords, polished, inherited, and drawn at the slightest opening. Backstage, meanwhile, the great machine winds down. The theaters of Edo are marvels of carpentry, with revolving stages and trapdoors and lifts, all worked by muscle in the dark below, and the stage crews rack their levers and coil their ropes like a ship's company making harbor. The costumes, silk mountains of them, go to their racks. The wigs go to their blocks, each on its shelf. The great painted faces come off with oil and cloth, and the actors, who have been ghosts and princesses and heroes since mid-morning, shrink quietly back into tired men, who then sit around the brazier in the green room in dressing gowns, eating rice, complaining comfortably, being at last, for an hour, nobody at all, which is the one role the public never sees and the sweetest one they play. The street empties by degrees. The tea houses dim. The stall keepers pack their carts. The theater cats, sleek on a diet of admirers' leavings, take their thrones on the empty ticket steps, and the great banners over the street painted with the actors' crests hang still in the night air, waiting for tomorrow's crowds over a street that is finally, at the third bell, as silent as everywhere else, sleeping off its daily enchantment. In the morning, the drums will sound from the towers again, announcing the day's program to the whole quarter, and the street will fill, and the revolving stage will turn. The city needs its dreams on schedule. This street is where they are manufactured, and even dream factories must bank their fires at night. The great bell counts the hour, and Edo sleeps on, and somewhere in a dark theater, a stage-hand's lantern crosses the empty stage, checking, and the vast painted scenery watches him pass like a polite audience of mountains. Down a lane in the bookseller's district, behind a shutter like every other shutter, sleeps the workshop where the city makes its pictures, and it deserves a visit tonight, because the pictures it makes have been keeping us company all evening without our noticing. The bridge with the mountain behind it, the lantern street in the rain, the actor mid-glare. If you have ever seen a picture of old Japan in your mind, the odds are good it was born in a room like this one. The prints are a partnership of 4 trades, and the shop holds all of them. The artist draws the design, in flowing brush line on thin paper. The block carver pastes that drawing face down on a plank of mountain cherry, and cuts away everything that is not the line, leaving the drawing standing in relief, transformed from a gesture into a thing. And a good carver is said to save or ruin an artist as surely as a marriage. The printer inks the blocks, 1 block for each color, lays the dampened paper on, and rubs the back with a flat pad in firm circles, coaxing the color into the sheet, registering each new block to the last by 2 small notches, with an accuracy that looks like magic and is only practice. And the publisher, who owns the shop and the risk, decides what the city wants next and is wrong just seldom enough to stay in business. What the city wants is itself. That is the great joke and the great glory of the trade. The lords buy paintings of Chinese sages. The low town buys prints of the low town, its own bridge, its own fireworks, its own actors and wrestlers and famous beauties, its own rainy crossings where everyone hurries under umbrellas exactly as everyone actually hurries. The people of Edo are the first city crowd in the world to be their own favorite subject. And for the price of a bowl of noodles, A porter can carry home a picture of the very street he carries loads down, made by a master, printed in 8 colors, and pin it to his wall, and feel the strange, warm doubling that art is for. That is my bridge. That is my rain. Tonight the shop sleeps in layers, like its prints. The cherry blocks are stacked on edge in their racks, each wrapped, each holding one color of one picture in patient relief, some of them cut by men 2 generations gone and still printing true. The brushes are washed, the pigment dishes are nested, blue inside red inside black. In the drying room, the day's edition hangs on lines like small laundry. 200 sheets of the same autumn moon over the same temple roof, deepening quietly as they dry. And the moon in every sheet is identical, and the low town will buy everyone, because autumn is passing. And the prints say so beautifully. And saying so beautifully is this city's favorite way of being told anything. The apprentice sleeps by the block racks, as carving apprentices do, closer to the planks than to his own family now. In 10 years, his knife will be the one the artists ask for. Tonight his hands rest, and in the racks around him 100 cherry planks hold 100 pieces of the city in relief, lanterns and bridges and rain, waiting in the dark, like everything else in Edo tonight, for morning and the next impression. The great bell counts the hour, and Edo sleeps on, and its portrait sleeps beside it, cut in cherry wood, wrapped against the damp, true for as many mornings as anyone cares to print. Near the Temple District, in a compound the neighborhood points out to every visiting cousin, sleeps the heaviest household in the city, and its sleep is a public treasure, the sumo stable. Behind that ordinary gate, in ordinary rooms, lie a dozen of the largest men in Japan, and the block around them rests, the neighbors like to say, more soundly for the ballast. Sumo is old past counting, temple-born, and it has become the low town's great winter and spring festival of a sport. When a tournament is on, the city talks of nothing else. The banners go up, the drums sound from the towers, the prints of the champions sell out by noon, and the tea-houses divide into factions that would alarm a person who did not know that the same fierce partisans walk home together, argue happily the whole way, and stand each other noodles at the corner. The new man from the north, the one the Bathhouse was debating earlier tonight, has the whole city in that pleasant fever just now. Half of Edo has seen him. All of Edo has an opinion. The stable is the sport's home shape, a master and his men living as one house. The master is a great champion gone gray, thick now in the way of retired strength, and he rules the household as masters here rule, by having done everything first and hardest, long ago, and forgetting none of it. The young wrestlers cook, clean, draw water, and serve their seniors, learning at the bottom of the ladder that the sport's real first lesson is the same as the city's. You are part of a household before you are anything. Their day is over by dark, because it begins in the black cold before dawn, when the practice ring is raked and the first drills start on empty stomachs, feet stamping the packed clay in unison, breath clouding. The same 8 exercises their grandfathers' teachers did, done 10,000 times until strength stops being effort and becomes address. The way a cura stands, the way a bridge bears. The great meal comes at midday, the famous stew, a cauldron of broth and vegetables and everything the market sent that morning, eaten in strict order, master first, and then the long afternoon of rest, because rest, the masters teach, is where the practice soaks in like rice in its pot. So now, at the hour when poets are still fiddling with syllables, the stable has been asleep for hours. They sleep in rows in the big room, futon against futon, a dozen mountains under quilts, and the sound of it carries gently into the lane, a deep tidal breathing that the neighbors have long since folded into their own sleep, the way people near the shore fold in the sea. Children of the block taken past the gate at night are told there that is the wrestlers, and something about the thought, all that strength lying down, harmless and warm, breathing like a herd in a byre, puts a child to sleep faster than any lullaby the mothers know. Before dawn the stamping will start again, felt through the ground for a lane in every direction, the block's own second heartbeat. Nobody complains. It is like living beside a forge or a temple, the neighbors say. Some houses keep money behind their gates, ours keep strength. The great bell counts the hour, and Edo sleeps on. And the 12 largest sleepers in the city sleep in a row, gathering the morning's thunder under their quilts, quiet as hills. At the southern edge of the city, the great coastal highway comes in from the west, from Kyoto 300 miles away, and where it meets Edo stands the first and last post town, the city's front porch, and its night is the night of arrivals and departures, softened to a murmur. The highway is the spine of the country. Along it, in an unbroken chain, lie the post stations, each a day's walk apart, each with its inns and its stables and its porters, and everything the road carries, lords' processions and pilgrims, merchants and mail runners, passes through this final station on its way into the city. By evening the day's travelers have come in, footsore and dusty, and the inn quarter has performed its nightly miracle, absorbing hundreds of strangers, feeding them, bathing them, and laying them out in rows to sleep. The inns run from grand to humble, and the humble ones hold the truer picture of the road. In the big common room of one such, 20 travelers are bedded down tonight under shared quilts, heads to the wall, packs stacked in the alcove, straw sandals drying in ranks by the door, a grain dealer from the west, 2 pilgrims bound for the northern shrines, a carpenter returning from a temple job with his tools and his pay, a grandmother traveling, quite alone and entirely capable, to see a new grandchild, strangers at dusk. They have shared a bath, a supper, and 2 hours of road stories, and are now asleep in one warm row, breathing in a dozen provincial accents. And in the morning they will scatter and never meet again, and it will not matter. The road makes its own villages, one night long, and unmakes them at dawn, and there is a whole quiet humanity in that rhythm that the settled town never learns. The innkeeper's day ends past midnight and begins before dawn, and nobody in Edo works harder for smaller fame. His art is timing, water hot when feet arrive, rice ready when the bath empties. The mail runners, who travel in relays through the night carrying the fast dispatches, bang through at all hours, and the road's rule is absolute. The runner eats at once. Tonight's runner is in and out in the time it takes his relief to tie his sandals, a bowl emptied standing, a lamp swinging away up the dark highway toward the next station, carrying somewhere in his satchel, wrapped in oilcloth, the ordinary urgent business of a great nation, price lists and remittances, and a letter from a homesick apprentice, all traveling the night at a steady run between sleeping towns. The stables sigh and shift. The road lies empty under the stars, pale, patient, running west over the hills toward everywhere else. First thing tomorrow it will take today's rested travelers and hand the city a fresh 100 in exchange. The toll it charges is only this, that everyone who sleeps here dreams, faintly, all night of walking. The great bell counts the hour, and Edo sleeps on, and at its southern door the whole country's road sleeps too, one day's walk at a time, all the way to the capital. Down at street level, under the fire towers, the night has its walking keepers too, and their instrument is the simplest one in the city. Two blocks of hardwood on a cord. Struck together, they make a dry, bright clack that carries down a lane like a pebble dropped in still water. And that sound, twice, with a called phrase between, is the oldest good night in Edo. Every block of the low town keeps its night watch. Old men mostly, steady men, walking the lanes at set hours with a lantern in one hand and the clappers in the other. The call they cry is a warning and a comfort in the same 4 syllables. Mind your fires. Clack, clack. The cry moves away down the lane, turns the corner, fades, and returns an hour later from the other direction. And between its passings, the whole block sleeps easier for knowing the sound will come again. The clappers speak a small language. 2 strokes, all is well, mind your fires. Rapid strokes, wake and come. And on the coldest nights of deep winter there is a longer cry, drawn out and almost sung, that the children imitate and the poets have borrowed, and which means nothing more than it says, and yet has made people feel looked after for 200 years. The dry are asleep, the fires are low. Walk on, watchman, all is well. Tonight's watchman on this block is the retired plasterer, 70 years old, who took the post when his hands got too stiff for fine work, and found, to his surprise, that it was not a lesser life but a distilled one. He knows every door he passes. He plastered half these walls himself, and he checks his own old work with his lantern as he goes, professionally, finding it good. He knows which house has a new baby, and softens his clappers for that stretch of lane, striking them muffled against his palm. He knows which gate the cat uses. He knows where the boards are loose, and steps over them, out of courtesy to the sleep of others and respect for the boards. At the block gate, he meets the watchman of the next block, as he does 4 times a night, and they stand a moment, lanterns down, and exchange the night's news, which is that there is no news in the fullest and most satisfying sense. Cold coming on, wind steady from the north. The Soba seller passed an hour ago, headed home. Nothing else moving but cats. They part with a nod. 2 old men holding up their 2 small ends of an enormous quiet, and the clack of their clappers moves away in opposite directions, stitching the sleeping blocks together at the seams. In the houses along the lane, nobody wakes for any of it, but the sound goes in all the same. Ask anyone from the low town who has moved away what they miss, and sooner or later they all say the same thing. The clappers in the night, going past, going away. The sound of being minded. The great bell counts the hour, and Edo sleeps on. And up and down its 10,000 lanes, the small wooden hearts of the blocks keep beating, 2 dry strokes at a time. Here is a secret that is not a secret, running under the whole low town. Edo drinks from the mountains, and the mountains arrive by wood. Under these streets, box channels and pipes of cedar and pine, joined like the work of ship carpenters, carry river water drawn off many miles inland, sloping it gently down through the city's underside, splitting and splitting again, until it rises at last in the neighborhood wells where the buckets drop all day. The city was built on a marshy shore, and its shallow ground water was never fit for a million throats. So the founders did the enormous patient thing. They went up country, tapped the clean rivers, and led the water in along channels dug and boxed and buried, generation after generation extending the system, until by tonight it runs under the whole spiral city like the grain under a tabletop, and hardly anyone thinks of it at all, which is the fate and the metal of all great plumbing. What the low town calls a well, then, is mostly not a spring but a tap, a wood-cased shaft down to the buried flow, and the well is the middle of everything. Every longhouse lane has one. The morning line at the well is the parish assembly. The water is lifted, judged compared to yesterday's water, and carried in on shoulder poles, and the last dipperful of the evening has been drawn hours ago now, and the wells stand covered in the dark, lids weighted, buckets hung, while the water runs on quietly beneath them all night, unhurried, mounting cold on its long way to the bay. The system has its keepers, as everything faithful does. The water wards, guild men who walk the lines, who know the buried junctions the way boatmen know the canals, who go down through the inspection shafts with lanterns to check the joints and clear the screens. Cedar underwater lasts lifetimes, but nothing lasts unwatched, and the ward men's maps, drawn and redrawn, handed master to apprentice, are among the most valuable papers in the city, and look, fittingly, like drawings of a great flat tree, roots in the western rivers, crown of 10,000 twigs ending each at a well, each well ringed each morning by buckets and gossip and children. Tonight one ward man is out, as one always is, walking a section of the northern line with his rounds lantern, listening at the shafts. Running water heard through cedar in the dark has a voice like talk in the next room, and he knows its healthy sound so well that his ear does the inspecting before his eyes do. At the junction under the dyer's lane he stops, lifts the lid, listens, nods to himself in the dark, and seats the lid back with care. All through the exchange, 8 feet above his head, the lane full of sleepers sleeps on, not one of them aware of the man, the shaft, or the small river of their tomorrow passing beneath their beds, cold and bright and spoken for. The great bell counts the hour, and Edo sleeps on, and under it, in the dark, in channels of good cedar, the mountains flow quietly to every corner of the city, arriving everywhere by morning. By the 3rd bell of night, the city has changed managers. The people are down, the lanes are empty, and across 1,000,000 roofs and 10,000 walls, Edo's cats have come on shift, and no city in the world is better arranged for them. Consider it from a cat's height, a vast connected country of low roofs, warm from the day, pitched gently, joined wall to wall down every lane, so that a cat of ordinary talents can cross a whole parish without touching the ground. Fences rail the gardens, wood piles stare the eaves. The cura storehouses stand at intervals like castles, each with its official mouser holding the freehold. The fish market by the bridge anchors the economy, and the whole territory is stitched with informal treaties, boundary stones known to every whisker, negotiated nightly on the ridgepoles in the old way, at staring distance, with formal songs of menace that wake half the lane below and settle, almost always without a blow struck, honor served on both sides. The Cats of Edo are children of the low town too. Quick wits, loud arguments, few actual fights. The city, for its part, is fond of them beyond sense. Cats here are shop guardians and silk protectors, keepers of the grain against mice, and something more that nobody quite names. A cat by a shop door is good luck, plain and settled. Give the city another lifetime, and it will carve that luck into little sitting figurines, one paw raised in welcome. Whether the luck is real is not a question this city bothers with. A thing believed in together, the low town knows, is real enough to organize an evening around. Tonight the tortoiseshell who holds the Bathhouse block is making her rounds, and they are rounds, as fixed as the plasterers. The furnace room lattice, for the warmth stored in her particular board. The Soba cart's home corner, time to the seller's return, tribute customary. The fishmonger's threshold on principle, though the stock is locked away. She travels the fence tops in a flowing walk that spills like water and pauses like stone, crosses the lane at her crossing place, and finishes, as always, on the roof of the well shed, the block's central and commanding height. There she sits, upright, tail wrapped over her feet to the exact tip, and holds the post the fire watchman holds above her, and the plasterer holds below, and does, in her way, the same work, watching over the sleeping block, or watching over her own dominion, which happens to be the same place. The block has never needed to decide which, and neither has she. Late in the night, briefly, it rains. One of autumn's small passing rains, and the whole roof country whispers under it, and the cats of the city tuck themselves into their known dry places, under eaves, in woodsheds, against warm chimney backs, and wait it out with the patience of landlords, and are abroad again before the boards are dry. The great bell counts the hour, and Edo sleeps on, and over its sleeping head, the soft-footed night government goes about its business, collecting its taxes in warmth and fish. In an upstairs room over a paper shop, one small light is burning past every reasonable hour, and it would be wrong to end our night without climbing up to it, because the man at the lamp is doing the low town's other night work. The watchmen keep the city. He is keeping the autumn. He is not famous. He teaches haiku to merchants' wives and retired shopkeepers, corrects their verses for a small fee, and writes his own on the backs of used shop paper, because paper costs money, and poems, as he tells his students, weigh nothing and are improved by humility. His room holds a desk, a brazier, a borrowed teapot, and tonight, through the open window, the whole cooling city, which is the true equipment of his trade. The poem he is, after tonight, is about the night Soba seller's horn. He heard it an hour ago, 2 notes going away down the lane, and something in it has been troubling him gently ever since, the way a poem troubles before it arrives. 17 syllables. The autumn night, the little horn, the going away. He writes a version, and reads it by the lamp, and shakes his head. Too much said. The art, as his own old teacher beat into him with great kindness, is to get out of the poem's way, to set down the horn and the night side by side, and let the reader's heart cross the gap itself, because the crossing is the poem, and it happens in the reader or not at all. He tries again, cutting. The lamp fizzes softly. The brazier ticks as it cools. Downstairs the paper seller and his family are long asleep, and the poet works above them like the fire watchman on his tower, another kind of lookout, scanning a different dark for a different first spark. This city is full of his kind, more than any city has perhaps ever held. Clerks who write verses on the backs of ledger pages, bathhouse keepers with a seasonal album. The great masters of the last age walked these same lanes, stopping at these same stalls, and left behind them the conviction, now general in the low town, that poetry is not a mansion art. It lives here in the lanes, on used paper, in the space between a horn and a listener, and any porter with an ear may own some. Toward the 4th bell he gets it, or something near enough to sleep on. Autumn night, the horn's 2 notes, and the lane a little longer after they are gone. He reads it twice, changes one particle and lays down the brush. Tomorrow it may look worse or better. That is tomorrow's affair. He slides the window to, banks the brazier, and unrolls his bedding in the small warm room that smells of paper, and is asleep, as poets and children are in moments, the night's work done. His lamp, the last on the lane, goes out. From the fire tower, the watchman notes its going, the way he has noted it at this hour for years. Now his parish is complete. The great bell counts the hour, and Edo sleeps on, one poem heavier than it was at dusk, which is, around here, considered a good night's increase. One more small trade deserves its chapter before we let the night deepen for good, because it is the most Edo trade of all, and it is asleep now all over the city in 1,000 little cages. The insect sellers. This city buys autumn by the cage, and considers the money well spent. All through late summer, the sellers go out to the grassy edges of the city, to the riverbanks and the temple margins, and catch the singers. Bell crickets, with their high ringing like struck glass. Pine crickets softer, with a pulse in the note. Each kind has its name, its song, its connoisseurs, and its price. And the catching of them is a boy's apprenticeship and an old man's art. Back in town, the sellers fit out their stalls with tiers of tiny cages, bamboo and gourd and fine lattice, each with its singer and its slice of cucumber. And the stall at evening, ringing all over at once, is one of the sounds the low town waits for all year, the sound of the turning season for sale by the piece. And the city buys. Families hang the little cages at the window or under the eave, and the cricket sings at dusk and into the night, its silver thread of sound laid over the household settling noises. And everyone within earshot is given, nightly, free with the purchase, the old feeling the poets keep trying to trap. The year is passing, the nights are lengthening, everything lovely is brief, and the brevity is half the loveliness. And a small ringing voice by the window says so, over and over, gently, until the whole family is asleep. It is a strange purchase, if you stand back from it. Other cities buy songbirds for cheer. This one pays for a sound whose entire meaning is that autumn ends. But the low town would only smile at the puzzlement. Of course the song is passing, they would say. That is why you bring it close. You do not hang a cricket at the window to pretend the year is not turning. You hang it there so that the turning has a voice, and the voice is sweet, and you can lie in the dark with your family and hear time itself sing, and be, for some reason no one can explain, comforted. Tonight the cages hang quiet at 1,000 windows. Their singers went silent one by one, as the cold came down after the little rain. Here and there a hardy bell cricket rings on alone in the dark, slower now, the note coming at longer intervals, like a bell ringer growing thoughtful. The children who tend the cages, who feed the singers their cucumber and their bit of eggplant, will find the little cage quiet on some cold morning soon. The cage will be cleaned and put away on the shelf until the next summer's singer. And that too, the low town would tell you, is part of what you are buying. The whole lesson, one autumn long, in a cage the size of 2 cupped hands. The great bell counts the hour, and Edo sleeps on. And at its 1,000 windows the little silver voices of the season ring slower, and softer, and sweeter, saying the one thing they know. One more thing happened in this city tonight, all over it at once, and we should not let the night close without it. The moon rose. That sounds like no event at all, but this is Edo in autumn, and here the autumn moon is not scenery. It is an occasion, kept by 1,000,000 people, and kept best after everyone else has gone to bed. The custom is old and simple. When the great autumn moon comes, you look at it properly. You set out a small offering where the moonlight falls, dumplings piled white in a dish, a jar of pampas grass plumes nodding like silver foxtails, the season's first chestnuts. You sit where the moon can be seen, on the veranda if you have one, at the window if you do not, and you let it be looked at, and you let yourself be quiet in front of it, and that is the whole ceremony. The moon does the rest. Earlier this evening, before the lanterns went out, the whole low town kept it in its own way. Families on their steps, children being shown the rabbit that this country sees in the moon's face, pounding rice there with a little pestle forever. Boats drifted on the river with their poles shipped, full of upturned faces. The poet's students all wrote moon verses, and the poet corrected them gently and wrote none himself, because his teacher taught him that some moons are for poems and some are only for looking, and the difference is a thing you learn by getting it wrong for 30 years. Now, deep in the night, the moon has the city to itself, and this is the hour it keeps best. It stands high and small, and very clear in the cold air, and it does what the autumn moon does better than any other. It touches everything lightly. The tiled roofs of the storehouses, frosted silver, the canals, laid with long white paths that tremble and mend, the pampas plumes in 10,000 jars, nodding at 10,000 dark windows over the offering dumplings, which are, in a fair number of houses, one or two fewer than they were at dusk, the theft traditional, the suspects asleep, their faces dusted with the evidence. An old woman is awake for it, in the long house by the well. She does not sleep much anymore, and has stopped regarding this as a misfortune since it leaves her the moon. She sits wrapped in her quilt at the open window, hands around a cooling cup, and looks, and is looked at. In that even exchange the custom is really about. She has seen more than 70 of these autumn moons. Every one of them, she would tell you, was different, and everyone was the same. And both of those facts get better with age. The moon slides west by its own bell. The frost thickens on the roofs. The old woman nods in her quilt, wakes, smiles at herself, and goes at last to her bedding, leaving the window open a hand's width, out of courtesy, so the moonlight can finish its visit properly. The great bell counts the hour, and Edo sleeps on, silvered from ridgepole to waterline, its offerings out, its rabbit pounding rice in the sky, its oldest festival keeping itself. Deep in the night now, with even the poet's lamp out, the city has gone over to its other life, and we may spend one drifting chapter wondering what a million sleepers dream, and let the wondering be loose and warm, because your own dreams are near now, and there is no sense holding them off much longer. The children of the low town dream the city upward. Flying is the favorite, as it is everywhere. But Edo's children fly low, along the lanes, skimming the lantern tops over the well shed, up the fire tower in one glad swoop to stand beside the Watchman, who in dreams always knows them and is always pleased. The bridge children dream the river, and the river in their dreams is solid enough to walk on, gold with lantern light all the way across, and the fish come up to be greeted by name. The apprentices dream of home and of mastery, in alternating measures. The farm boy in the cloth shop loft dreams his mother's kitchen with the accuracy of homesickness, every bowl in its place. And then, some nights, he dreams he is head clerk, brush in hand, writing the great ledger in strokes so beautiful the master stands silent behind him. And both dreams are true north, and between the two of them the boy's whole life is already mapped, and it will be a good one. The old dream backward, and in this city that means they dream of fires and festivals in roughly equal number, the terrors and the glories of the low town, and mercifully the festivals are winning, this generation being further now from the last great burning. The old plasterer, asleep at last after his final round, dreams of walls he made 40 years ago, smooth under his young hands, and of the festival drums of his boyhood, and his sleeping face in the dark is the face of a man at a parade. The cats do not tell, but their paws move, and the city itself, if a city dreams, dreams what its shape says it dreams, the spiral turning safely around its still center, the water running under the streets to every well, the bells handing the hour outward, ring to the edge of the fields, a million people lying close, wall against wall, roof touching roof, all breathing, the long houses breathing together, the whole vast wooden creature breathing, warm under the autumn stars, dreaming of morning rice and open shutters, of the drum towers and the first ferry, of everything beginning again as it will, as it always has. Let your own breathing fall in with it now. A million sleepers keep an easy stroke. There is room in the boat for one more. The great bell counts the hour, and Edo sleeps on, and its dreams rise off the roofs like the last thin supper smoke, into the clear cold among the stars. And now it is the hour with no name, the trough of the night, when even the late are early, and even the bells seem to ring more softly, knowing themselves nearly unheard. The fourth bell of night goes out over a city, in which almost no one is awake to count it. And that is not a waste. A bell rung over sleepers is a blessing said over people who cannot hear it, which is, when you think of it, most blessings. Stand with the fire watchman one last time, at the top of his ladder, in the cold. The north wind has cleared the sky to a black past blackness, and the stars are down to the rooftops, the whole river of them, and below there is not one lit window in his parish. Not one. The lanterns are out, the braziers are ash. The paper city has gone dark as the water in the moats, and the only lights in all of Edo are the stars above it, and the watch fires at the castle gates, and the little swinging dot, far south, of some male runner carrying the nation's business through the dark at a steady trot. Listen, the quiet here is layered, like everything in this city. On top, the near silences, the creak of his tower in the wind, the tick of frost forming on the rail. Under that, the parish silences, 10,000 sleepers worth of hush, wall against wall down every lane, and under everything, so low it is felt more than heard, the ground note of the place, the bay working against the river mouth, the wind in the castle pines, the whole city's wooden mass settling one hair's breadth closer to the earth, as wood does nightly, as it has for 100 years, giving off its small-held sounds like a sleeper letting go of the day. The watchman hears it all without listening, the way you hear your own house. He blows on his fingers. Overhead a late goose goes over, high and alone, calling once, and the call falls down through the cold onto the roofs of the sleeping city like a single brushstroke on clean paper, and is gone. He follows it south out of sight, and nods, as though something had been well said. Nothing else. That is the report from the deepest hour. Tonight and nearly every night, from every tower across the whole dark plain of roofs. Nothing else. The fires are cold. The water runs under the streets. The bells hang quiet in their towers, their ringers asleep beside the ropes. The city has handed itself over, all million of it, to a few old men in the cold. And honestly, by now, to you, listener, one of the last souls in all Edo still even half awake, keeping this gentlest of watches with us from under your own warm quilt. You can let it go too, whenever you like. The night holds. It has been holding all along. The great bell counts the hour, and Edo sleeps on, and the stars stand over the black roofs like snow that has decided, for tonight, to stay where it is. The tofu makers wake first, in their small shops all over the low town, before any light shows. The fires are lit under the great kettles, and the soaked beans go to the grinding stones, and the first work sounds of the new day begin behind shutters, softly, a low stone rumbling here and there in the dark city like the first turning over of the whole creature. Tofu must be made fresh each morning and ready by breakfast, so its makers keep bakers' hours, and they are the low town's advance party, moving in lamplight through routines so practiced they are half asleep themselves and no worse for it. Steam begins to rise from the shop vents into the cold. The smell of it drifts down the lanes, clean and faintly sweet, the morning's first smell, arriving while the stars are still out. Then one by one the others. The well pulleys begin to creak as the earliest households draw their water. The bathhouse boy relights his furnace from the banked coals, yawning in the warm ash smell. Down at the bay, the fishing fleet is already standing out onto gray water, lanterns paling, and the fish brokers are walking to the bridge market in the dark with their breath ahead of them. The mail runner's relief passed the city gate an hour ago. The vegetable boats are tying up along the market canal, and the radishes come ashore white as the last stars. The sky over the bay goes gray, then pearl. Cocks begin along the eastern lanes, answered across the districts in widening circles, and the sparrows come out under every eave at once, disreputable and delighted, holding their morning parliament over every lane in the city. Shutters begin to knock and slide. The first smoke stands up straight from the first kitchen vents. In the long houses, the futons are folding away, room by room, the beds becoming parlors again. The whole low town changing shape for day exactly as it changed for night. 3 minutes to the household, no wasted motion anywhere. And then from the temple by the river, the great bell rings the 6th hour, the dawn hour, and the long bronze note rolls out over the wakening roofs one final time. And this time the whole city hears it upright. The ringer's son, who has been up since the tofu makers, puts his weight into the beam and counts his father's count. And around the yard the pigeons lift once and resettle, and the note goes humming away over the parishes to its last thin edge, and dissolves into cock crow and pulley creak, and the 10,000 small wooden knockings of 1,000,000 people opening their day. The watchman climbs down his ladder, stiff in content, his parish handed back whole. The plasterer's clappers hang by his door until tonight. The tortoise shell collects her fish head at the market like a magistrate accepting papers. The poet sleeps on, as poets will, with morning full on his window and the poem safe on the desk. And the paper seller below opens his shutters quietly, out of a neighborly regard for the trade upstairs, which pays no rent to speak of but confers, he feels, a certain tone on the building. And that is the whole of our night in Edo. Nothing happened as promised. Lanterns were lit and put out. The bath was hot. The noodles were rescue. The bells told the hours to sleepers who trusted them completely, and the trust was honored. And here is the morning, delivered to 1,000,000 doors like water, like rice, like every plain faithful thing this city runs on. The great city will go on without us now, into its loud, bright day. Let it go. You have somewhere softer to be. The bell has counted your hour too, listener. The fires are minded. The watch is kept. All is well, and all night long it was. Asleep now. The lanterns are out. The morning is in good hands. This was worlds before morning. Good night.